going, folks? Nick here with the Tiara Permaculture vlog. Otto's right behind me somewhere. He's my garden cat, the co-star. And yeah, we're out here again. This is the weekly update I'm doing here. Again, I keep saying this over and over again, but just so you guys are aware right up front, I'm not doing as many videos right now just because I'm, well, extremely busy. That's one way to put it. Very busy, and it's also hurricane season, so there's a lot of, potential weather that could come through here, so it's not really the best time to kind of start a whole bunch of new stuff. So I just want to let you guys know that I am not going to just kind of leave this behind and start doing that. I'm just trying to figure out how to adapt it into my schedule. So with that, I got a lot to share this week, lots of stuff going on this week, and a couple things just to show you in the backyard, and otherwise it'll probably be a little bit of a shorter one, so for those who like the short ones, you're in for a treat. So let's just get started. Here's Otto. Here's the co-star Otto. Yeah, good boy. He's been wanting to get out all morning. He's very excited to be out here with me. Anyway, I hope all you guys are well. This week, let's see, what did I do this week? I worked quite a bit, so I do have like a full-time-ish job at this point, so that's nice. And it's all online, so I don't have to go anywhere. I just have to basically do all the work from home, which is really nice. I get to work on the computer, which can be sometimes draining because it is computer work all the time, but you can't really complain when you get to work at home. So I'm fine with that. I get to come back here, check out the backyard whenever I want, and let the chickens out, just be around. It's nice just to be around home. I really like that. I like not having to leave to do work, But when I do leave to do work, I'm doing some cool stuff. So yesterday, I had my second consultation with a family looking to essentially establish a little hobby farm. So we went out yesterday, and me and Rio from up the hill, you guys have seen him in previous videos up at Hacienda Rosa. We went out and checked out this 50-acre property. Was that yesterday? It was 2 days ago, on Tuesday, whatever day that was now. And yeah, really cool property, beautiful property. The owner walked around the whole thing with us. He's basically just getting ready to get rid of his land because he's no longer going to need it. He's getting older and he wants someone to actually, use the land. So yeah, we checked out the land. Huge property, huge. We spent, a good easily 2 hours just walking around, and we didn't even see all of it. And there were even trailways established, so it's pretty easy to actually walk around and see what's going on. Thinking about that in terms of a property design, that's a lot to maintain. There's a lot to figure out what you're going to do with and keep up and running. So the family that I'm working with really only wants about 10 acres, so they would probably buy a 10-acre chunk of that 50 acres. And that's a little bit more doable. 10 acres is reasonably what you can kind of control, at least in a temperate climate. In the tropics, it is quite abundant growth, so sometimes it's hard to stay on top of that, but it is certainly doable. It just takes a little bit more time and effort. And this property had a very long, gentle slope, and it went kind of up, and then it basically went into forest, and it was all forest. So the majority of the acreage is forested. There's probably about 15, maybe 20 acres that's kind of more clear, that's easily accessible for starting a system immediately. But yeah, that one, it just, it would take a lot of work. It's been farmed before. It's been, worked quite a bit. It was, a monoculture plantain / banana kind of thing, most likely. We don't know that for sure, but that's what he was telling us, that there's a lot of those there. So that's usually it's just going to be monoculture, likely some sort of pesticide use. Again, it's been a while since it's been farmed, so it'd probably be just fine at this point, but it's just one of those things you think about. If you look at the land, it wasn't quite as fertile. If you look at land that's really well taken care of, hasn't been overgrazed or overused, you can really kind of tell that it's really lush. It's green, it's dark, deep green. There's a big variety of plant life and everything. On this property, at least on that flat area that would be open, it was definitely more kind of light green to brownish in some places. It was definitely overcompacted because there were definitely cattle on there just allowed to roam free. So absolutely nothing wrong with the property, right? It would just take longer to develop than another property than the first property we'd looked at, which while still had cows on it, it didn't seem to be as regularly grazed. And it also just had much deeper green growth. It had a big, huge variety of plant life within the pasture itself. and then the majority of it was forest, but in all reality, in the tropics, forest is kind of what you want, because that's what's going to hold the fertility the longest. And the stability, not just fertility, but stability. That's what you're looking for. All right, we're down here in the chickens now, getting ready to give them their feed. They're, I think, looking forward to it. Look at the two baby chicks down there. They're just nestled together. Pretty cute. They just like to hang out together. And of course, here's Henry down here, the challenging child, you know, challenging hen. You can see there's a bunch of nice green, fresh growth. I had done a lot of trimming yesterday throughout the yard, so I got a nice fresh layer of bedding for all of them. Let me go ahead and give them their food so they don't keep wanting it. All right, guys. There you go. There you go. Hey, Henry. There you go. Let's go check these guys out. Look at them. They're so cute together. So these guys, since they were kind of raised by their mama, they're not so used to me as a kind of handler yet. So what I'm doing with them on a regular basis at this point, since now mama's less defensive of them all the time, is I'm really trying to hold them, which, as you can see, can be somewhat of a challenge, because they think that I'm going to attack them. It's okay. See, I try to hold each one of them a couple times a day while I'm out here. They're very sweet little chicks. Of course, now I got everyone riled up. Everyone's like, "What are you doing to the chicks here?" That chick's freaking out. But it's important. It's important that they get you to know that I am not their enemy, that I am their friend, that I want them to be happy and healthy, and that's what I'm here for. So I just kind of make sure I hold them on a regular basis. They get to know that me picking them up and holding them does not mean that they're going to be, you know, taken away or hurt or anything like that. Just give them a nice little support. Just let them feel like, oh, he held me and then he put me down and there's nothing wrong. Do that a bunch of times, and then they start to kind of get more used to you. These two will probably still pretty much run all the time, unlike the other ones, because we raised by hand and we fed them as oh, it's okay. It's okay. It's okay. The other guys we raised as chicks, these ones the mama raised, so they're just going to be a little less used to us from the get-go. Okay, I'm going to put this one down. There you go. Look, there's food right there. I'm just going to walk away, give her a minute to figure out that everything's okay. Maybe have a little food. So look at that. Put her down. She has to eat. That's the other thing I like to do, is if I am kind of getting them used to me holding them, is right after I put them down, I'll put them near the food. I don't know if that actually helps at all, but it at least makes me feel like when I put them down, they're thinking about, oh, he's giving me food. I like this guy. Chicks are they're getting older. They're at this point pretty much doing their own thing. We don't have to really think about them as much. We're still locking everything up at night. We can probably stop that pretty soon. At this point, they're not so young that they're going to get really attacked at this point. I don't think whatever got our first chick, I don't think anything can get them at this point. They're big enough. I did get a question from one of you guys. It was, I believe, when's the best time to apply the compost, or to apply compost in the tropics? And that is a good question, really good question. Thanks for asking. I forget who it was. I think it was Ben, I think it was, but I'm kind of, I don't remember the name. I just remember seeing the question and keeping in my head to try to remember for today, and luckily I did. So yeah, the best time to apply compost, there's many good times to apply compost. Anytime you're resetting a bed or establishing a bed for the first time, always perfect time to apply compost. I like to, anytime I'm resetting a bed, I go through, pull anything out I don't want, all the weedy stuff that is just gonna take over the bed if I leave it there. Do that first, and then what I like to do is add the compost, and then I aerate. So when I aerate it with a garden fork, I think I have a video that I kind of really showed how to do that. I forget which one it is, but I'll try to link it above. But basically I take a garden fork and I use it like a broad fork. So you just shove it in as far as you can, and then you just lift. You're not turning the soil, you're just like slightly lifting the soil. And when you do that with compost on top, some of the compost is going to fall down into those holes and kind of inoculate all throughout those little holes you know, the microbiology that you want in your soil that's in the compost. That's assuming it's high quality compost, right? So the first step is really make sure you have high quality compost when you're planting your garden, because if it's not so high quality, it can actually have, you know, the not so good microbiology in there that can actually cause your plants to end up dying. So make sure you have good compost. Make sure it smells good. Make sure it's a dark brown. It's not black. It's not light brown. It's like a dark brown. Smells kind of like forest floor. Doesn't smell bad. Doesn't have a bunch of weird chunks in it. So make sure you have good high quality compost. I apply it right when I reset a bed. Put it on top, aerate, and then I mulch everything, and then plant into the mulch. And after that, kind of the best time is once your plants start flowering. That's a really good time to put some more compost, just because that's when they're going to start expending a lot of energy to do fruit production or seed production, really. So that's a really good time just to give them a little bit more of a boost, make sure they have everything they need. But let me get back to the compost question. When you reset beds, when they start flowering, when you start getting fruits in the tropics, like you're asking, I believe your question was specifically for the tropics. In the tropics, you can apply compost pretty much whenever you have it. I mean, it's not going to really hurt that much if you keep on applying compost every month or so, every few weeks. If you apply compost, you're going to keep on inoculating that microbiological network, the soil food web down there, into your soil. In really good soils, and once you have that food web established, you really only need to add compost, like I was saying at the beginning, maybe right when it starts to flower. And then after that, just kind of just watch the plants. Whenever there starts to be a little bit of a dip, when your plants start to look a little sad, you can add a little bit of compost just to help add that back in. But once you have the right soil biology down there, and once you have a nice ecosystem, as long as you maintain it, like I was saying earlier, by keeping it mulched, not having bare soil exposed all the time, then it's actually going to it should be able to take care of itself. Now, again, we are in the tropics, so there's huge abundant growth. So the key is really manage your soil ecosystem. Keep on managing it, keep feeding it. Again, remember, soil's hungry. Soil wants to eat constantly, just kind of like us or pets or chickens or anything like that. They want to make sure they have enough food. And what they're eating is organic material, dead organic material essentially, that is placed on the soil or in the soil, if there's roots or anything that you cut and leave there. So that's what they eat. So keep feeding your soil so you can keep feeding your soil food web, and then your soil food web will keep feeding your plants. Does that make sense? So once you have it established, so it might take a little while to actually get established and get that biology in your soil and happy and kind of continuously producing and continuously reproducing in the soil, I should say. But once it's there, all you really have to do is manage your soil. Make sure that you have constant supply of food for it in the form of mulch on top, and make sure you just have constant plant growth. And that's the other really important thing. You can't just have like a bare thing of soil, add compost, and then let it rest forever. It's not bad to let your soil rest, but if you don't have plant roots and you don't have an organic material for the actual soil food web to chow down on and to interact with, then they're not going to have a real reason to be there. So when you do apply compost, make sure you're then putting in seeds or you're putting in plants immediately after. Or a cover crop. Cover crop's great. Compost, cover crop. Let it do its cover crop thing for a while, cut it back, or not till it in, but like cut it in, use it as mulch, add more compost, right? So basically, definitely after every crop. This is a very long-winded answer, I know, but I'm just kind of getting into my little flow here. But pretty much anytime that you're going to start a new crop after your previous crop, you should add compost. Anytime your crop's like about to flower or is starting to flower, that's a good time to add compost just to make sure it has everything it needs. And then really any time that your plant's looking sad or your soil just doesn't seem right, it seems unhealthy and dry and not really holding any water or nutrient, then it's a good time to add it. When you first get started, it'll be much more often. Here, when I got started, I pretty much added compost probably every month or two to the beds, as much as I could produce it, basically. As often as I produced it, I was adding it to the beds. But now that I have a nice, good established layer of soil in here throughout my entire gardens, I really only have to add it in at the beginning of every kind of crop rotation. Does that make sense? So when one crop's finished and I turn a bed over, I add compost. And then occasionally I will add compost when things start flowering if it seems like the plant is just not super happy, right? If it seems like it just needs a little bit more. So I added compost into this bed a couple months back, and then you can see all these peppers are starting to flower. I think this one's actually flowering right over here. So this whole bed here, it's all looking good, right? It's all nice deep green growth. There's nothing that tells me that this is looking kind of sad and that I should maybe think about adding compost. Now up here, let's look at these. Now these ones, if this was a brand new plant and I started seeing this tends to be telling me this yellowing is like a lack of nitrogen in the soil here. So that tends to be what it is. But what really is happening here is these plants are old. They've already produced, and they've already given me a crop, and now they're actually going into their second crop, and these lower leaves that are not getting as much light are just kind of dying off. So these guys could probably use another round of compost. Anytime I see that, if I still expect to have a crop, and again, like I'm saying, it's about to start flowering, so now it's probably a good time to add compost. So I might end up doing that maybe this week. But through here, for older plants like this, I'd expect to see some sort of die off like that. That's kind of regular when it's really kind of getting older itself. But there's absolutely nothing wrong, especially since it is starting to think about flowering, to add a little bit of compost here. And when I add compost, again, I'm taking away the mulch layer, add the compost, and I put the mulch layer back on. Remember, anytime you add compost, make sure you cover it. It can be covered with plants, that's fine. If you're seeding a cover crop, that's great, but the cover crop's going to take a while to kind of get up and running. So make sure you cover it with mulch until that cover crop's up and running and covering the soil. The key is you just always want the soil covered, and compost you don't need to till in. I didn't say that earlier, but you don't need to till in compost. If it's maybe your first time establishing a bed, getting it a little bit further down, that's fine. It kind of helps establish something if it's never been used as a garden bed before. That just helps get that microbiology kind of all through in different layers of that soil. But once you have a garden bed established, or once you're producing on a regular basis, you do not need to till in compost. You put it right at the top, cover it with mulch, plant into it, and that's going to be just fine, because what happens there is then the microbiology will naturally work down and find their way through the plant roots and grow with the plant roots, especially if you're seeding. That's what I really love doing. If you do have really high quality compost, seed into that compost, and immediately when those seeds start growing and start germinating, all of those little partnerships that they want to be having with the soil are right next to them because they're in that compost. And then they're able to kind of then work down in there with all those partnerships immediately, so you should have really nice healthy growth. So I think that's a really very long and running on type of explanation for your answer there. I believe it's Ben, maybe Ben Lee. If that's just literally off the top of my head, I'm pretty sure that's what your name was, or if it wasn't your name, then my apologies. But I'm here to attempt to answer your questions, and there's my answer. There was another question a while back. I answered via message there, but there was another question a while back that was can I do a video on how to establish swales on steeper slopes? And the answer really is you don't, right? So 20 degree slope, that's like 20 degrees, I don't know, if that's 0 degrees and that's 90 degrees, that's 45 degrees, half of that and a little less. So you're looking really at a slope kind of like that. You don't want any more than that. Any more than that, you just risk a lot of potential downsides. There's a lot of more potential of some sort of erosive action or landslides. Because remember, swales are soaking features. Swales soak water into the ground. So if you're in a really steep terrain and you put a swale in there and you get a lot of infiltration into the bottom of this kind of slope here, it can end up causing too much saturation in that slope, and then it'll kind of slump and move down the hill. So do not install swales above a slope of 20 degrees, and realistically you want more like 15 to 18 degrees as your maximum. And that tends to be the maximum that any kind of heavy machinery could really go across a slope to work on those. So that tends to be a good rule of thumb there. If the driver's like, I don't know if I want to move my thing around that, don't do it if you're using a machine to help you establish them. So there's another quick answer for you. All right, so the only real thing updates on our side on the homestead is I cleaned up this slope. I actually cut the grass finally. I cut the grass all along the path down here just to kind of give us a nice, fresh, somewhat open path again. It was kind of getting a little bit jungly, which happens here in the tropics. And I believe, have a couple parcha vines right here. They're kind of crawling up here, and yeah, look at that. See that right there? Parcha. So these guys were volunteers. They just started showing up and growing right here. So this is a decent place for them. I just need to figure out how I'm going to keep them long term, because it's not going to be feasible to really just allow them to grow up into this papaya, especially because, let's see, it looks like this papaya might be a female based on that flower. So if it is, I definitely don't want this this parcha to completely take it over. So I got to figure out a solution for that. That's going to be on my to-do list of thinking about and then moving forward with. But just letting that vine kind of get established a little bit for a little while and climb up there, that's fine. These guys in here, they seem to be pretty happy for the day. I'm actually just going to let them out because I'm going to be here all day. See, all the chicks love to go out. And of course, there's Henry, who gets to stay behind. Henry's certainly welcome to come out here, but what happens is he comes out and then eventually he gets attacked by the chickens. You know, he's not really being attacked so much anymore as just kind of being challenged, the pecking order, but Henry's just scared. So what I do if the chickens are out, I'll let Henry in here so she starts to kind of get used to what it's like in here. The other thing is Henry does not have her wings cut, so if there is an attack or anything, she can just fly away. That's perfectly fine. And if she's up in this little coop area here, what ends up happening is she ends up coming from here and she flies up to that little fence right there. See how it's kind of squashed down? That's because Henry keeps flying on it. So she'll fly from here up there and then just sit there and go back to her coop. So she actually likes her little pen just fine. But anytime all the other chickens are out, I do like to, you know, let her out, let her have her free time, but it just means I have to actually pay attention, because otherwise she might come over here and start eating the garden. So, all right, that's it for me today. Hope it wasn't too long. I kind of promised you guys a short one, and as usual, I just kind of start talking and all of a sudden it's way later. So hopefully you guys enjoyed that. If you do like what I'm doing, please subscribe to the channel. It really helps me get more reach and get more eyes on the videos, and that's really what I'm looking after. So yeah, hope you guys enjoy. Until next time, have a good one.